You were one of the first people within our circle of friends to, for lack of a better term, go viral within the Instagram world. I remember one day out of nowhere, Instagram reposted one of your videos and you shot up to like 100,000 followers, like overnight.
Yeah, that was fun.
Do you remember what that video was?
Yeah, it was true.
What's up, guys? Today's guest is a professional movement artist who is currently living in Las Vegas performing. Please welcome to the JAMCast, Mr. Scott McDonald. What's up, dog?
Hey, buddy.
Good to see you, man. I know. This is surreal. I haven't seen you in what, 3-4 years? Maybe?
Probably about that. Like,
I think so.
I've been through LA a couple times in the last 4 years, but I haven't been there for any meaningful amount of time. So
What's crazy is before that, though, I used to see you like every single day when we were training.
Open gym, followed by open gym.
Twice a day.
And then possibly some more open gym after open gym. Yeah.
You were a staple of Jam for a long time. It's crazy, man. So how long have you officially been in Vegas for? Is that how long I haven't seen you?
Yeah, since 2016. That was when I got into Cirque. So I've pretty much moved everything. Because before that, for like maybe 5 years or so, I was kind of splitting my time, LA and Vegas, doing gigs and stuff and driving forever and ever.
Damn.
But once I got the jobs here, I was just like, well, it's cheaper. Everything's closer together.
It's true.
I like it. So
that's wild, man. Yeah. So how did you actually get introduced to Cirque? How did that journey begin? Like, did you actually physically apply and do the full day castings that they do?
Sort of.
Okay.
Yeah. So I started as a tricker back in the heady days of 2000 when you were badass if you could do an aerial.
Cheat gator.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, 540 aerial flash kick.
Yes.
But my skill level in tricking just totally plateaued like 2004, 2005-ish. And I wasn't exactly the top of the line tricker for that time anyway.
Maybe for normal moves, but for obscure moves, you're still pushing the boundaries.
And no, even then I sucked at obscure moves. Yeah, no, I was just bad in general. And then eventually I realized, okay, this doesn't seem to really be progressing at the rate that I was hoping it would. And I had no aspirations of doing it professionally or anything. I just enjoyed doing it.
Okay.
But I saw all the Europeans start to do all the swing throughs and things like that. And I was like, shit.
Kind of tight.
So, yeah. So, I kind of just stalled there for a bit, and then eventually I realized there was this whole other world of acrobatic stuff I could do that wasn't just strictly martial arts tricking.
Okay.
And also because at that time it was more martial arts oriented. And yeah, once it started going in the realm of gainer switches and corks, I just fell by the wayside and kind of tried to cling to the back of the bus as it drove away and just let go eventually. But I realized there was all this other stuff I could do. So I started just trying everything.
Okay.
Probably like 2009-ish, I would say.
So that's when the skills started to accumulate. Yeah. Because I've always known you as like a Swiss Army knife. Like you have all these random skills.
Yeah. No, I just I always like to learn something. Okay. That's basically what drives me, is always improving at something.
Okay.
So I don't really care what I'm learning as long as I'm learning.
Dope.
And basically to constantly feed the little junkie inside my mind with dopamine, I was like, all right, I need to learn new stuff all the time. I need to keep progressing and keep doing new things. And eventually it became a matter of like, okay, I realized the more stuff I could do, the more different gigs, shows,
of course,
things I could get paid for as well. And even if that was never the intention, learning any of this, eventually you're like, wait a minute, if I have a sear wheel and I can do like 3 weeks worth of sear wheel and people will pay me $1,000, which is the cost of a sear wheel, to go out and do like 3 minutes of bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 minutes of highly difficult acrobatics that I put my blood, sweat, and tears into.
You didn't watch Dustin Shepard's episode. There were F-bombs every 2 seconds.
Oh, perfect.
You're good, yeah.
Good. But yeah, so I just realized, okay, like I can be more diverse than everyone else. Maybe not everyone else, but a very large section of the acrobatic population.
Totally.
And as long as I can keep all my skills at a reasonable enough level, cool.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
I mean, it's kind of interesting. You're like literally, a lot of people, like we joke about it on lacasting.com. People check every box because they just want to get jobs, but you legitimately can check a bunch of boxes. Like, I know, and add to the list, but I'm just going to name off the skills I know of. Right. Tumbling, trampoline, tricking, steer wheel,
Yep.
nunchucks.
Yeah.
Right? Nunchucks is a random
Nunchucks
one.
is-
Music also,
Yep.
correct? Music production.
Yep.
What are some other acrobatic ones I'm missing? Is there anything?
Well, by proxy of nunchucks, poi.
Oh, fire or regular?
Either way, same shit.
Okay, all right.
Tramp wall, Chinese pole.
Forgot about those.
A little bit of partnering, some fake free running. Let's be real.
Let's be real. We're all fake free ready to get this age.
Pretty much. Yeah.
All of us are.
Just leave it to the G-Tramp kids. And
crazy.
probably some other stuff. I don't know.
Okay, so how did CIRQUE come about then? Did you have to so I know about this process because I'm actually a consultant for Cirque du Soleil. So I get to help go to headquarters sometimes and help review casting tapes. But there's like two processes. Either A, we scout people when we're in need of a very specific skill. So like, we need wushu guys. They can also trick. It's like, okay, there's going to be like 5 dudes maybe. But
Brian
then they
Lee,
also
Brian Lee,
exactly,
Brian Lee.
yeah. And then they have these big cattle calls, for lack of a better term, where they're in major cities where they have people come through round by round, and it's almost like a full day workout.
Yep.
Did you have to go through either of those, like the full day workout, or did you just
No.
audition locally in Vegas?
Fortunately, I was super, super awesome at doing acrobatics when I first started auditioning for Cirque. So I got cut in the first round of literally every audition I ever attended.
No way.
For 3.5 years, I was trying to get in, and first round, every time they were just like, "Oh, go fuck yourself," and I was like, "Cool, I'll just keep
Sweet,
working
thanks,
on
guys.
that." And I was primarily working on tramp wall as my main discipline to get into Cirque because it just seemed to be popular and it was fun.
Okay.
So like MJ1 has tramp wall.
Yes.
Love has sort of tramp wall. OVO, one of the touring shows, has tramp wall. Volta has tramp wall.
Yes.
All of any Cirque show that involves a trampoline, they're going to be like, but you need to do wall too.
Yeah.
So that kind of became my focus. And also tramp wall gigs pay really well for very little work once you're at a certain level.
Oh.
So my first ever audition for any form of acrobatic show was for Cirque de la Mer at SeaWorld, who also told me to go fuck myself. But
that's where my business partner, Aaron Tony, got his start. Cirque
that's
de la
true.
Mer.
Yeah, Aaron was there
Totally.
like, back in
20 years ago at this
Forever.
point. Yeah, probably 15, 20 years. Yeah.
But yeah, so I learned a valuable lesson at that audition, which was maybe my own personal brand of blunt, emotionless, apathetic honesty is not the way into companies. So I made my way through this whole audition. It was very easy. And then in this sort of exit interview, they were like, okay, so what makes you want to come work here? And like, I wasn't going to be like, dude, my whole life I've just wanted to do tramp wall next to Shamu. Oh, God, finally. So I was just like, well, normally I pay to go to the gym and do flips. And in this scenario, you would pay me to go do flips. So that sounds like a better deal to me.
Totally.
And they were kind of like, he's not kidding. Okay.
Like,
next.
solid answer.
Yeah.
We'll take that one. That's hilarious.
Let's find
man.
someone who's a little more idealistic than you.
That's crazy.
So anyway, I tried that. They obviously didn't take me. I then auditioned for another show in Santa Cruz, and that was the single worst show ever.
Was that the action sports type one? I think I know which one you're talking about.
I'm not going to name names, but I will say never work for those people.
Yeah. I think I know which one you're talking about.
I made $75 a day to do, I think, 3 or 4 shows a day, depending on whether it was a weekday or a weekend.
Holy crap.
Oh, it was great. I had to trick and hand balance and fake b-boy on concrete before every show. And then in the show, I had to trick again, do stomp dancing, which was great. Tyler, the creator, came and filmed me on Vine, and that was my most humiliating internet moment.
That's hilarious.
And then bow staff solo, trampoline, tramp wall, Chinese pole, some really janky bungees where there was like a ramp. This entire show was a ripoff of the finale of Step Up Revolutions. Literally
brought it all into one.
every single thing about it. I'm not even exaggerating. They were just
so
like,
funny.
let's take that and that and that and that and that and do it on a budget of nothing.
No way.
So basically I did everything in the show and got paid nothing for it, and made me very grateful for any other show, any other gig, any other stupid thing that I feel I'm having my time wasted by. I'm still like, at least I'm not back to that.
That is wild.
So anyway, that was a little bit of exposition, but eventually I started auditioning for Cirque du Soleil. I I used to train at the Tempest, the only Tempest at the time in Northridge,
Yep.
and some of the guys who were in Iris, which was a cirque show that was actually in LA for like 2 years, I think.
Okay.
Started training there.
Okay.
And I had no idea there was a cirque show in LA. And they were like,
either.
oh, like you should go audition. And I'm like, haha, very funny. That's cute. But eventually it kind of took place in my mind as, wait, maybe I could if I actually tried. And thought, instead of like, oh, you have to be like some Olympic god from Ukraine or something to do this, maybe you don't. So started auditioning, started getting cut in auditions, and eventually in 2016, the timing was hilarious. I was hanging out with Jeremy Marinas, and he was like, so when are you going to come do stunts? Because I had done a couple gigs at the time. Totally. I was SAG eligible, and I was like, you know, I've had this sort of dream in my mind of just wanting to prove that I was good enough for Cirque du Soleil. And once I audition one more time, in which I'm absolutely 100% certain they're going to be like, that was a nice first round, please leave and never come back. We're tired of your shit. Literally the next day, I got an email from casting being like, hey, so we thought of this role that you'd be really good for. You want to come audition for Chris Angel? And I was like, what the fuck, Chris Angel? Okay.
No way.
Because I've been only doing tramp wall for the last 3 years.
Totally.
And they were like, yeah, we want you to do sear wheel, tricking, and parkour. And I was like,
great. Yeah.
So went to the gym, warmed up my fake tricking and my fake parkour, and tried to figure out how sear wheel worked, because I may or may not have put it on my resume saying I knew how to do it after doing like 2 sessions of it at a gym one time. And then I got the job, and then from there I went on to Beatles Love, and I worked there as a trampolinist and as a Beatle, essentially. Like the guys who do trampoline also play the young Beatles, so we run around and we do like tricking and parkour and b-boying and stuff. And then from there I went back to Chris Angel when he left Cirque, because I actually just really enjoyed working with him, and the working conditions were awesome. Like I did this many flips a night.
Wow.
I had this much makeup.
And what was your flip?
An aerial.
Nice.
It was to bow.
One
One time I sprained my ankle so bad I could barely walk, so I just subbed a helicopter over my bow instead. And I was like, look, it's probably cooler anyway. Like,
yeah, technically way more difficult as well.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But yeah, so I worked for him for a bit again, and then Cirque created Run over at Luxor. I went and watched a preview of it, and I was like, this just looks like fun. So I went and I auditioned there. I got in, but I never performed. I had this incredibly bad luck streak starting in December that seems to have run until about 2 days ago. First of all, my second day there, I got in a massive car accident, totaled my car, almost died. It was super fun. And so that kept me from going back to rehearsal because my neck was all messed up. And then as soon as I got back, everyone had the flu, caught the flu, left again. As soon as I came back from that, my very first rehearsal on stage was for an act where there was a car, or a fake car.
Yeah.
A very expensive fake car, and a treadmill that's also kind of like a rod floor consistency.
Okay.
So the whole idea was run on this treadmill, climb up, fight Mark Paletti. He would punch me in the face. I would do a B-twist, and then wreck on the treadmill. It would spit me away.
Of course. Okay.
And so first rehearsal ever, have literally never even done the choreo with him. And I find out I probably don't have as much time as I thought. So I'm like, okay, cool. We're going to mark this. So I marked a B-twist because that was going to be my crash. And just literally did a jump full turn. Tore two ligaments completely in my left ankle on impact, just because it was the first time I had landed on the moving treadmill.
Totally.
I was like sideways, and my ankle just rolled in like that. And God knows, with 20 years of tricking, I've had plenty of ankle sprains.
Of course.
So I'm sure it was just like waiting for the perfect thing, and that was the perfect thing.
Did you have to have surgery, or?
Yeah. I had surgery in March, and it was Brostrom surgery. Basically, they drill a couple anchors into you through your ligaments. They tighten it all up, and then you just chill in a boot for a while.
Dang.
And this was also concurrent with the pandemic starting as well.
Of course.
And the show closing, and then all the other Cirque shows also closed. So it was just sort of this big, just what's going on moment.
So is Run completely shut down, or is it closed for the pandemic?
100%
gone. Okay.
Yeah. It closed a week before all the other shows closed.
What was the basis of that one? I wasn't too aware of that.
It was stunts. Literally, it was stunt based.
It's that one. Okay,
Yeah.
so I know about that one. They kept putting
yeah.
out calls for talent for that one for a long time.
I would imagine they would, yeah. So yeah, it was a stunt-based show. It was a very strange show, and I feel like it never really came to completion.
Okay.
Because, I mean, when you open a show, usually for the first year, just about, there's still going to be tweaking.
Still adjusting, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally, yeah.
And run, I believe in its entirety, ran from November till March, and that was it.
Wow, that's a short run. Because even like I helped with the development of, I helped with the development of Volta, and like I know like the first 2 cities that they travel to, they send part of the creative team to make changes, and then like a year in, they totally got rid of the parkour section. Like they just they swap whenever they need to or see fit. So that's crazy. So 3 Cirque shows in total.
3 Cirque shows, 3 ongoing ones, and then I've also performed for them for One Night for One Drop and for Choreographer Showcase.
Wow.
And whenever they open back up, hopefully they do, I'll probably go add number 4, 5, 6, 7.
This is cool for me because like I'm kind of like on the other side for like, like behind the veil, so to speak. Like they keep me away. So like I just know some of the things from my other friends that perform. Do you have to do your own makeup on these shows too?
Yep.
Okay, so that's one thing that I always thought was unique when I went to headquarters is they teach you how to apply your own makeup.
Yep.
You do your own costume and everything. And so how long does that process take? Like how long before a show do you have to show up and do it?
Well, you have to show up at call time. So that's a set time.
Okay. How many hours is that usually before?
It varies from show to show.
Okay.
Yeah. At Chris Angel, it was an hour and a half, I think. No, what am I talking about? It was an hour before showtime, and I had no makeup for that. I wore a mask the whole time. It was awesome. At Love, it was 5:45, and first show is at 7, so an hour and a quarter. And at Run, it was like 4 or something. It was super early. But the makeup itself for Love and Run, which both required makeup, was very simple. Because you just had to look kind of like a prettier version of yourself. So
dolled up a little, yeah. It's not like Ka, my friends.
No, Ka's crazy.
A minute, yeah.
Yeah, Ka's crazy, and Taruk was the super crazy one. That was the Avatar one. So it's just like 3 hours of makeup or something. For me, initially it was almost 3 hours because I just never do my makeup. Weird.
Wow.
Right? Who knew? But by the time I was done, like 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's what everyone says.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
fund the process.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And now, like, we even talked about it with you coming over here. And for those that haven't realized, this is the first official JAMCast on the road. So thank you for joining us. We're in Las Vegas. But you even mentioned it. Like, you were like, the drive will take me 15 minutes. It'll probably take me just as long to park and walk through the hotels.
Yep.
So, like, when you guys are working on these strip hotels on the shows, do you guys have a separate parking lot, or do you park in the public, and do you have a separate entrance?
Usually it's in the public lot. When I worked with Chris at Luxor, we had our own parking lot, and it was right next to the stage door. So that was the chillest thing ever. Like park in and it had one of those little, whatever they're called.
Yeah. Security
English
things. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it had a barrier. So yeah, we had our own lot, and it was great. When I worked at Love, we would park right over there.
Wow.
And yeah, depending on if it was peak tourism season, which normally it would be right now.
Of course, because that's when you're doing all the shows, right?
Dude,
How long does it take to get in? Just for people that have no reference of Vegas.
So almost no matter where you live in Vegas, you're going to be about 20 minutes from the Strip at the furthest. So it's not like LA where everything's kind of just, you're everywhere.
Everything's an hour instead of 20 minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Here, the Strip basically is the center of Vegas, and it runs along the 15, and it bisects the city. So we got Henderson, we got Vegas, and on the east and the west sides respectively. And basically the whole thing is just laid out like this little circle with the 15 in the middle of it. So I would say it takes you on a normal day 15 minutes to drive, but if it's tourism season, that intersection right there takes forever.
Yeah.
So I would always leave about an hour before I had to be there just to be safe. And most times I would wind up being at work half an hour early and just be like, oh, whatever, I'll go stretch or like get food or something. But yeah, it's not a good feeling to be panicking and running late.
I was going to say, I only, the only other instance I thought of it being crazy like this was I talked to someone that worked in an airport, and they said it's the same deal. It's like sometimes 30 to an hour to like get through all the procedures and security and parking. And I'm like, damn, and you don't get paid for that time.
No.
It's crazy.
See, that is the thing. There is no union either for acrobats here. It's not like SAG. So you don't get paid for rehearsals when you do that.
Totally.
You have a set amount of you could have X hours per week of rehearsal, and if you exceed that, then you'll get paid a little extra.
And correct me if I'm wrong, working on the residency shows here in Vegas, you have to get your own housing. They don't provide it at all, right?
Yeah, that's a fun misconception. Everyone shows up being like, oh, I'm going to live in a hotel. Where's my penthouse? Nope.
I've only had one friend of mine, but I think she was like doing she was a female dancer for one of the shows, and they got rooms because they're only here like twice a week or 3 times a week. But yeah. The residency shows, it's tough.
If you've just moved to Vegas from out of town for a show, they'll put you up usually for about 2 weeks, and then you find your own place. Yeah. But Vegas housing is cheap.
It is. I've been looking at buying some houses out here actually, just to have one, especially with the Raider Stadium coming up soon. Yeah. I mean, obviously we're in the middle of a pandemic, so I'm like, these events will suck for a minute, but down the road with the Raider Stadium and all the UFC fights, all the boxing.
Yeah. Oof. Especially because we live in the very far south of town. So I'm maybe an 8-minute drive from Raiders Stadium.
Dude, super chill.
And I know they're planning on putting some kind of technological park and building up sort of the resort stuff further south. The Raiders training area is just off the freeway on the other side of it from my house.
Oh, okay. I know where you are then.
Yeah. So, the whole thing with Vegas is okay, my house costs as much as a 900 square foot 1-story with barred windows in Compton.
Of course.
And I'm not exaggerating because I looked it up.
Yeah, of course.
I've got a 2,300 square foot house with a big ass backyard. I'm in a corner lot. I've got a pool. Wow. I've got all the space I could ever need. I have no neighbors. There's a park behind my house. I love living here.
Okay.
And everything is so easy. It's a 5-minute drive to the gym. It's a 10-minute drive to physical therapy. Totally. It's a 15-minute drive to the Strip and to work, therefore. I used to live in Santa Clarita, so my view of LA is, everything is going to be really, really, really far.
Totally. And you kind of used to being removed a little bit, you know?
Yep. And then I lived in NoHo for a bit, and somehow even being so much closer, it still took just as long to get anywhere.
Of course. I've noticed that as well, because I have an office in NoHo right now. I thought it would cut down my time, and I'm like, it's just a pain in the ass.
Yeah, if you could burrow underneath Laurel Canyon, then yes. But
dude, that's crazy. So how is Vegas as a performer? Because I know I've had some friends here that have moved here, and they're like, dude, it's chaotic. It's not the life for me. I got caught up. And then I have other friends that moved here, and they're like, dude, it's pretty cool. There's tons of circus gyms, aerial gyms, all kinds of stuff centered around that.
Yeah. I am such a hermit that I don't give a fuck about the whole nightlife thing. I don't even know if I've ever been to a club in Vegas.
Wow.
Literally.
Funny. Okay.
Maybe once, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for me, it's super chill. It's got all the stuff I like to do, which is go to the gym and train. Yep. There's cliff diving 50 minutes away in one direction. There's Mount Charleston an hour in the other direction. You can snowboard there in winter. It's close enough to LA that I can always drive back and go to the ocean, go to Jam, go wherever. Utah is just an hour and a half north of here. It's just for such a barren hellhole, it's actually kind of awesome living here for me.
Crazy. Okay. Yeah, how do you handle the heat? That's the one thing that I know. It's a little hotter
with
than the
my
valley.
Extremely expensive power bills mostly.
That's what I was gonna ask. Yeah.
Lots of AC. But you acclimate to it. And I spend as much time as I can indoors, or go in the pool, or just train in the backyard or something. Insofar as I can train right now, go and juggle and be like, it's really fucking hot, huh?
Yeah. That's crazy, man. So taking it all the way back to the beginning of your journey, we kind of stumbled upon how you started accumulating skills and stuff. What was your background before any of it? Did you do martial arts at all? Did you do gymnastics at all? What was the origin story of your movement journey?
I did one gymnastics class once when I was 3, and I hated it, and that was that.
Wow.
I don't know, even when I was that young, even when I was that young. When I was that young, I didn't understand the concept of conditioning, so I just thought that the coaches were just sadist torturers who were just just hang from your pull-up bar for the next hour.
Totally.
Do a headstand against the wall for the next half hour. Yeah. So I was just I hate it, and I left. And then my parents put me into Aikido, and then when I moved, I'm Canadian, for anyone who didn't know that, which is most people, I guess.
Yeah.
So when I moved to America, I started taking jiu-jitsu, and then from there, I started doing karate, but it was not really karate. Like, it was a mix of karate and Krav Maga and sort of the beginnings of MMA. It was before MMA became as prominent as it is. It was when it was like K1 and Pride and all that were just as viable as UFC, and then UFC was like, by the way,
hold my jerk. Yeah, hold my beer.
That.
That's crazy.
So yeah, that was how I got into it. And then when I was in 8th grade, I remember talking to a kid in one of my classes who said that there were people at their dojo who could do like 540s and flash kicks and all that. And at the time, that was mind-blowing to me. So I was like, I must go.
What is this?
Yeah, I want to be a ninja for real.
I was going to say ninja skills.
Yeah, so I started training there, and then, So crazy. I went back after the fact to gymnastics, but never in a formal sense. I just went to gymnastics coaches, and I was like, hey, I don't know how to use my body. Teach me the physics behind all this. Because whether it's tricking or gymnastics or trampoline or literally anything, there's still sort of a codified way of doing it that works. So I started taking privates with a gymnastics coach and started learning more interesting tricks, like aerial switches and hyper swipes and things like that were cool for the time. And now they're completely irrelevant and no one even does them. Literally, when was the last time you saw someone do an aerial switch?
Never. Exactly. I do them sometimes because I can't mega sometimes. And I'm like, let's just fake this.
I don't even know what mega is. Yeah, so
exactly.
You damn kids with your terminology and your newfangled terms. Vanish rapid mega semi.
Exactly.
I don't know what any of those mean.
So at what point did you start acrobatics? Like, was it the introduction to the kicking at that martial arts school that technically was your first acro before the privates and stuff?
Partially. Okay. My cousin was doing sports acro at the time, and I was just at a beach with her one time and my aunt, and she was doing kip ups and front handsprings, and I was like, I want to learn that shit.
Yeah.
So learned how to do like a really bad front walkover, but thinking I'm hot shit at the time, and a kip up, and then just kind of got addicted to it.
Totally. So, all right. That's crazy. And now you're kind of known throughout the industry, or I mean, within our community of movement people, for doing these obscure random moves like we kind of talked about before. A lot of helicopter variations. I think a lot of the stuff that I freak out on is the trampoline stuff where you're over rotating to your hands and then coming out of them. How did you delve into that, and what's the learning curve on stuff like that? Like, was it a lot of bails and crashes?
A lot of bails. Helicoptero, I was trying for a long time and I couldn't figure it out. Like, I originally was learning because we both come from the same generation of there is no streaming video on the internet.
Totally.
So originally I was learning from text and like hand-drawn picture tutorials. There was a website called Chimp's Lair that Capoeirista out of the Bay Area used to run.
Okay.
And it had all these cool videos I would download, and it would take like an hour to have like a 10-second clip.
No
it was
way.
Sick.
Yeah.
And he had little drawings of like butterfly twists, parafuzos, things like that. And I was like, all right, I want to learn this. And then the obscure stuff I think really came out of just a lack of conventional ability, to be perfectly honest. Like, have you ever seen me do a round off back handspring?
No, and I hate round offs too, so I'm right there with you. Yeah,
exactly.
I feel you.
Like, I would love to have all the skills mastered. In my ideal world, I would just be the god of all the acrobatics, but that's not happening in this lifetime. So in order to just kind of keep it interesting and learn new stuff, I just started kind of going off the beaten path. And with most of those tricks, I would just see someone do it at some point and be like, that was crazy. And it was still fringy enough that I wouldn't see it again for a long time. So I first saw a full dive roll in 2007.
Perfect.
Yeah, actually at Woodward West, a guy called Dan Bronnenberg was like spamming them all over the place, and I was like, what? And he tried to teach me. I couldn't wrap my head around it at all.
No way.
He was also the first guy I ever saw do handspring, miss your feet rollout, and hand front. Handspring, front tuck to feet in 2007. And this dude's taller than me. He's bigger than I am. Like, he was not your typical gymnast build either.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, it's possible for like Lurch to get this done. I can do it. So, that was that. The helicoptero, I was trying for the longest time, and I honestly don't remember when it clicked. But I do remember shortly thereafter realizing that it's easy as shit if your hands are on like something this height.
Yeah.
And just being like, God damn it.
I remember when you showed me on the block.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
like,
helps so much.
Wasted like 4 years of my life suffering, just failing over and over on the floor. And then be like, oh, I could have just learned this in a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Once I remember you put a block and then you put a foam cube on the ground. Yeah. It's like, oh, here we go. I got it now.
Yep. Pretty much. Yeah, and then the other twisting dive roll stuff actually is because I saw Aaron Hakala do a 540 roll bomb and no kidding, and a 720 dive roll, and I had never seen or heard of either of those, and I still don't know if anyone did 720 before him.
I think he may have been.
I think he probably was the first. I saw 540s in the 70s though.
Yeah, of course, dude. You know what I just found on my old YouTube account? Me in 2007 doing round off 540 roll.
Hey,
yeah, I got to post that up on Instagram soon. Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome.
It's super cool, dude. I was like, wow, that's an old one.
Pioneering it.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, actually, one of the girls I worked with at Love, her dad was a collegiate gymnast, and he did a bunch of 540 dive rolls and stuff back in like 1976.
Okay.
With all the flips to my hands on trampoline, that was inspired by Jason Gatson. He was a gymnast from the 90s and the 2000s. And we were training at Woodward one time, and he just started doing fucking flips on his hands on a trampoline. Like, I was like, "Why?
What is happening?"
Yeah, what is this witchcraft? Okay. So I was inspired by that. And then another guy who was working at Woodward for the week, Jim Hartung, he was another gymnast from like the 70s.
Okay. I don't know
he told us that he had done in his floor routine full twisting front walkover and front flip into front walkover.
Wow.
And we were like, huh. So I looked up one of his floor routines. I've never seen video of him doing the front flip, front handspring thing, but I do believe he did it because his full twisting front walkover was just better than anyone's I've seen since. And that was almost 50 years ago.
Years and years
ago. Yeah. And he just told me like I stopped doing the front flip, front handspring thing after my back just went way too far and he just like kicked his own head or something. But that same day, Gatson and I went over to the trampoline and we were like, all right, let's try and do this as a dismount. And we were just kind of like man challenging each other, be like, I bet you won't try this.
Yes.
So did front tuck, front handspring. And then I one-upped him and did Baranian back handspring. And then I ended up landing front full in front handspring that same day, and he tried a Thomas front handspring, so like back full in, half turn front handspring, and I called it quits at that point. But I did eventually land it like a year later. So.
Okay, and this is going to be a weird question, so if you don't have an answer, it's totally understandable. But two-parter. One, what is your favorite skill subset that you have of all the things you can do? And two, what do you consider your most technically difficult skill or trick?
That's a hard one. In terms of my skills, ironically, the thing that I'm best at of all the things I do is nunchucks.
Really?
Of all the stupid things,
No way.
For whatever reason, that just really clicked with me when I was first exposed to it, particularly double nunchucks. Like, single nunchucks doesn't really interest me that much. I think, like...
Same.
Every time someone tags me in a video of a kid in a yellow tracksuit imitating Bruce Lee, I die a little bit inside, but I appreciate it, but I also die.
Yeah.
But yeah, double nunchucks really was my thing and still is my thing. It literally just feels like an extension of my body and it feels natural. Dumb. So that, in terms of my hardest or most technical trick, I honestly don't know.
It's all good. I was just curious if you had one, because to me, the reason why I asked is when I watch you do all these things like off the tramp to level resi, I'm always like, what the hell is that? What the hell is that? What the hell is that? So I was just curious if there was one. So here's maybe a better question. Is there one that took you the longest to learn?
Ooh, helicopter took me a long time to learn.
That's so funny. The one we just talked about.
Backflip took me a long time to learn. Backflip was the hardest trick.
No way.
Absolutely. That was like the gatekeeper.
How long was that?
Dude, I had a trampoline in my backyard for like 4 years before I manned up and did a backflip.
No way.
I could do a back pullover and I could do a back half because I would just like take off and just kind of like go
side spot. Yeah,
I would stare at the ceiling or the sky. Actually, I would just take off and be like, "There it is."
Horrible form, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but
that's crazy.
I can say some of the hardest tricks I've tried, but I've never actually successfully done.
Tumbling or what?
All of the above.
Okay.
One I want to revisit is triple front to hands, so like 2.5 flips to hands. I've done it insofar as doing the flips and hitting my hands, but I've never done it.
Yeah.
Mostly because it's fucking terrifying.
It's ridiculous.
Like,
yeah.
the last thing I want to do with a triple flip is be low or traveling far. I just want to be like, I'm away from the ground.
And going towards your head. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, kick out and be like, what if I did this at the worst time possible? And then tried to do a handstand.
Totally.
That'll work.
Ask Paul Whitecotton.
Yeah.
Quad front neck break,
Yeah. Funnily enough, your gym was the first place I ever did a quad front.
Really? No way.
Of
That's
all
so
the low,
funny. Of all the spots, that's not the place I would try it.
Yeah. I learned a lot of sketchy tricks in your gym, like back double layout to stomach.
Yeah.
I did for the first time on the trampoline at Jam.
Did you ever front flip and grab the beam like Ben?
Man, I tried for such a long time. I did front flip and caught the beam, but just like peeled off into the pit twice.
We were trying to have Eric McMetchin and Pasha do it last week. Couldn't do it. And I was like, Ben Jenkins can do it every time. It's crazy.
Ben is a superhuman though. Yeah,
he is one of one.
He is. He is. But yeah, that shit's hard.
Okay.
I'll put that on my list of things to revisit.
Yes,
now that I can revisit things. 900 dive roll on floor is another one I've worked on, but
from standing.
From standing on a block or from cartwheel.
Okay.
Yeah, but I've never caught it to the degree that I would count it. Like I'm
smooth.
Very much a nitpicker when it comes to technique with dive rolls in particular. Like I see so many 720 dive rolls that are taken off like facing away.
I feel you.
Just sort of like twisting and blindly praying.
Angles like this.
And then like there is no roll and they're like, oh, world's first 720 dive roll on asphalt. And it's like, ooh, but did you?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's impressive as it is. Just call it what it is.
At least you're stirring up a conversation in the community more than anything, I guess,
Yeah. Or just making people hate me.
Exactly.
Either way.
Yeah. Totally.
I don't know. Like, I just believe you should have integrity in your tricks.
Agreed.
Doing whatever you want to call that, a 540 dive roll from like a weird running takeoff is still super hard. It's still impressive. It's cool. Like, just own it and say, hey, I did this thing.
A little short, yeah.
Yeah, like it's the same as Tiki Wu did almost a quad cork recently.
That the other day,
and he was the first person to say, like, it's short.
Yes, he did say I'm shallow of it.
Yeah, but it's crazy. And honestly, that's a big thing with tricking. I don't understand why people don't do cork variations to a forward exit more often.
I don't know. Well, it's scary, but yeah.
Yeah, but so is everything. So is a quad cork.
That's where Mega comes into play. Mega would be a forward facing.
But do they ever punch out of it? Because I never see
some guys that are like Guthrie will do like a cork variation to Mega, and then it'll go like miss leg B to a swing through something or stuff like that.
But I want to see like a double and a half cork punch front into something. Like
that would be interesting.
It's another thing on my list. Okay. I want to do a lot of weird shit. Unfortunately, my landing and takeoff leg for all my swings is the one that I had surgery on. So I could probably do it right now, but I'm not about to risk that.
Totally.
But on my list of things is double cork, swing 540 dive roll, and stuff like that. I just want to do unexpected stuff.
Hell yes.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
And now here's one other thing that stands out in my mind that some people may remember or may not, depending on when they were a part of your journey. You were one of the first people within our circle of friends to, for lack of a better term, go viral within the Instagram world. I remember one day out of nowhere, Instagram reposted one of your videos and you shot up to like 100,000 followers like overnight.
Yeah, that was fun.
Do you remember what that video was?
Yeah, it was tramp wall. Okay. It was funny. It was really simple stuff. It was just me and two friends messing around in the gym one day, and I filmed it. I put it on Instagram, and then I remember checking my DMs, and I had a DM from Instagram, and I was like, this is definitely a virus.
Yeah. I'm getting hacked right now.
Sure, guys. Yeah, Instagram is messaging me. So actually, it was Instagram, and it was some representative saying, hey, like, we saw this video. We'd really like to share it. Can we interview you? And that actually happened. The interview happened in the Jam parking lot before open gym one day.
No way.
It was just a quick like 10-15 minute call on
totally. That's what they write that blurb about.
Yep, exactly. Okay. And they were just like, oh, what's your background? What do you do?
Dang.
And this was pre-CIRQUE. This was pre-anything. I think that was...
Remember the year?
20... it's got to be either 2014 or 2015.
I think so too.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah, and it was kind of funny because then that set me off on this other like, oh, I could go on the internet and do flips and people will enjoy them kind of thing.
Totally.
And that was funny and kind of misguided most times. But yeah, I think especially now, like I literally get as many views or likes on my videos now as I did when I had like 5,000 followers.
It's crazy, right? Yeah, it's an insane world. I'm starting to like get to that point too, where like, or I'll put out the dumbest thing ever, and it gets 4 times the amount of views than when I do a complicated edit. I'm like, all right, I'm done with the edits.
I'm done with even trying to play the social media game. Like, at this point, unless I go on TikTok and be like, yes, yes, steal my information. Exactly. There's no point, but I'm grateful for it. It makes me feel good when people are like, oh, I follow you on Instagram. Totally. But I don't put any sense of like my self-worth into it. Yeah. And I think that that's a big trap a lot of people fall into, especially younger people, where it's like, oh, I'm not getting as many views. And it's like, well, you're not, because of a stupid algorithm. It's not like, it's not
you.
Yeah, like, oh, you should probably just jump off the balcony. Like you only got 5,000 views or something. Like who cares? It's a bunch of anonymous strangers scrolling through your stuff and sometimes being like,
exactly. And sometimes there's people that purposely just won't like it just to not do it on purpose.
I'll show them.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. And so one of the other things I want to ask you about, which is because I don't know if you're still on it, but I always remember you being extremely flexible. Do you still have splits in all your normal flexibility?
After hip surgery, ankle surgery.
Yeah.
Knock on wood.
Right? I know. I was going to say, you had hip one? I didn't know about that one.
But after that, my left hip, which was the leg that got hurt, has been really weird. So, yeah, I can still do all 3 splits, but I used to be able to roll out of bed and just be like, and just fall into middle splits and not really feel anything. And now I definitely feel some kind of resistance. Wow. But I've only been able to start doing acrobatic stuff literally in the last 24 hours. So I do suspect that that's going to just kind of dissipate. Okay. Or I'm screwed. So but we'll see.
Along the lines of that maintenance, so to speak, and also tightening your training regimen, when you're healthy, how many days a week do you train and how many days a week do you stretch?
All of them.
Okay. And how long? For how long?
Literally all of it. From the moment I roll out of bed until I go to bed, I'm stretching. I stretch when I first wake up. I stretch right before I go to bed. And I usually, depending on what I'm doing, I'll do some form of stretch in between. But there is also a sort of caveat of if I'm going to be doing pretty much anything explosive or anything that's going to involve doing flips or trampoline, I can't stretch too hard.
I was going to ask that if it has an effect with your muscles.
Oh, dude, I turn into a noodle. Like,
really? So you can't
especially my back. Yeah, like not even I can't do a straight jump. I can't do anything
if you're too flexible. Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not a contortionist by any means, but I'm still more flexible than your average bear. And like with back stretching in particular, I feel like you go through this weird, almost like runner's high thing where it's almost just like pushing yourself to this weird limit of, I don't know, it's hard to describe. I'm sure anyone who's kind of gone through that could relate to it. But I mean, when you did martial arts, I'm sure when you first started stretching and your coaches would have been like pushing you down, which in this case would have been your parents, I imagine.
Yeah. Once you break that threshold, you're good. Yeah. But there is like a threshold you have to push through. And then it's like, oh, it feels decently good to keep going.
And I do think there's almost like this this form of self-identity where it's just like, I go to this point and this is the point that I go to.
People almost create mental blocks. Where
absolutely.
It's almost like an excuse for why they're at that level.
Yep.
They're like, oh, I just can't get past here. It's like, well, you just got to push through that.
Yeah. For some reason, all these little kids could, but you couldn't. I feel like you get used to moving a certain way. You get used to certain limitations and you just sort of live in that. And when you stretch something far beyond what you ever thought was possible for yourself, it's really weird. Like the first time I ever took my foot and put it on my forehead over the top like that, it didn't feel like my foot. It just felt like someone had taken like a mannequin foot and they were just like doing this. And I'm just like, what the hell is that?
Dang, I bet. That's crazy.
And like similar things like doing like forearm bridge and grabbing your ankles and being like, those are my feet. I can see my feet. My feet are this way. Like it's weird.
With being that flexible, does it require you the same amount of time to warm those muscles up, or does it require less time since they're more malleable already?
Depends what limit I'm going to.
Okay.
Most of the stretching I do is just for maintenance and to have nice lines. But if I'm pushing it harder, it takes me not necessarily more time, but a lot more effort. And I used to do this routine of bounce on the trampoline until I'm sweaty and feel physically warm.
Yeah.
Go torture myself for 15, 20 minutes of stretching. And then when I could start to feel like the air of the gym was cool, I was like, oh shit, like my sweat is starting to cool me instead of help me. So go back on the trampoline, repeat.
Wow.
And then if I was trying to take a pretty picture or something for Instagram, I would just repeat until I was no longer physically capable of bouncing.
Okay.
But I could just be like, look at my archiness. But yeah, there's a lot of flexibility things I suck at though. Like my pecs are very tight.
Ooh.
I am the anti-air chair right here.
Okay.
Like I can do a bad air chair, but there's a whole lot of
Room,
a whole lot of stretching that goes into it beforehand.
Wild.
Yeah.
Okay, and the reason why I'm asking these questions, and I don't mean to make it all about flexibility, but we have a lot of female guests that talk about flexibility, so I feel like a lot of the male viewers are disconnected from that. Okay. Along with the flexibility, is it mostly static or active stretching, and then is it also intertwined with like foam rolling out knots and stuff, or is it just
a lot of
stretching?
foam rolling?
Okay,
a lot of foam rolling and a lot of deep tissue massage, which
self or
preferably from someone else who doesn't feel the pain. Because I can only push myself so hard, but someone who doesn't care how it feels can go a lot harder.
Yeah.
For me, I never realized I was particularly flexible. It as a little boy, like you're taught, like, oh, boys don't do splits and stuff like that. So I never tried.
It's those mental excuses people create societally. Yeah.
But I did have elbows that bent about that far backwards. So I used to freak out my PE teacher in school and just like do push-ups and like and lock them super hyperextended.
So
that
funny.
went away with age and not stretching.
Okay.
But I think that some stretches probably came a little easier to me than they would for others. But I will say that doing partner stretching, foam rolling, lacrosse ball, massage, and doing all the stretches you hate the most is important.
That's a good
one. Everyone neglects the things they hate the most. So at the beginning of the year, and this challenge got kind of disrupted less than 2 weeks after I started it, but I made a challenge to myself to just do a bridge every day.
Wow.
I hate bridges.
Yeah, I hate them too.
Yeah, I'll do forearm bridges.
Of course, we don't train them because we hate them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just unpleasant. I would do forearm bridges. I would do hollow backs. I would do pretty much anything that wasn't just a straight up normal bridge.
Dog, I haven't done a bridge in decades.
Exactly.
Maybe more.
Exactly. So that was sort of my thing that got sidelined by tearing my ankle 2 weeks later. But it was making good progress. And once I started PT, I started stretching again and it made good progress again. And now I'm pretty bendy.
Wow.
But one thing for anyone who wants to learn how to get their back more flexible.
I was just going to ask, what's the intro tip?
Yoga wheel.
Yes, dude, I just got introduced to that by a friend of mine.
Dude, they're the best.
She had me lay on it. I was like, what is this feeling?
Yep.
Opening up everything.
It's great, yeah.
How big is yours? Is yours like
mine is probably about yay in diameter. Okay. The conventional ones seem to be about that size.
Yeah.
Mine is about that size. If I could, I would get one that was larger, but I haven't found any that are.
Okay.
Yeah, just because you can sort of drape yourself along it.
And, for those that don't know, what we're talking about is like it's a plastic little piece. It's so simple. It's like this wide, and you literally just lean your back on it. It allows your back to curve over it.
Yep. Imagine like a cylinder that you just took a slice of.
Yeah.
Put some matting on it so it doesn't hurt your spine, and that's it. You can grab it and kind of open up your chest and shoulders. You can go on your shins and work on your quads and your hip flexors. Eventually, you can do shins and forearms on the ground at the same time. Like that was torture at first. Now it's a warm up. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And like there's so many little muscles as well that you don't realize just get super, super tight. Like my glutes are super tight.
Dude.
Like my subscap is super tight somewhere in there.
Yeah. Post shoulder surgery, my subscap was wrecked.
Yeah.
Took months. Yeah.
And even small things like the muscles in your feet, the muscles in your fingers. Totally. Like if you've ever seen like Thai and Cambodian dancers, they would be the ultimate tutters because they can just like
full 90 degrees. And
meanwhile,
more.
I'm over here like I do a lot of one arm handstands and I've got pretty terrible active mobility there.
I lost a lot of mine. It's interesting.
Yeah. So even just simple things like stretching your fingers stretching your neck. For whatever reason, stretching my neck never occurred to me, despite having a million neck injuries.
I stretched mine because of stunts, but that
would make sense.
Yeah, but yeah, it's an overlooked one. Because when I tell people, hey, warm your neck up, we're going to do reactions, they're like, how do I do that?
I only actually got exposed to it once I worked for Cirque, because a B-boy was showing me some windmill variations and head spins and stuff. And he was like, dude, you got to warm up your neck. I'm like,
what? Oh, it's a muscle. It makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that helped a lot.
Okay.
These muscles, man.
Dude, I feel you.
They're the enemy of happiness.
Yeah, and a lot of times our neck gets wrecked because we're always looking down at our phones like this. And my chiro's like, dude, stop looking at your phone.
Yeah, absolutely. Or like my posture, like my shoulders are always super caveman-y. Yeah. When I was a little kid, I had just no pecs to speak of, probably because I was a little kid.
Totally.
Weird.
Same. Yeah.
But a lot of my friends were like 15 when I was like 12 and 13. So they were all going through puberty, and I'm just kind of like, okay. And I was a very skinny kid as well. Like I was 140 when I was 16 at my height now. And now I'm 180 or so.
Okay.
I've been 210.
Damn.
Back when I was like, I'm going to lift all the weights.
Yes. I remember that phase too.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of the phases.
That was White Lotus times.
Yeah. I've seen the phases. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, totally blanked out what I was talking about.
You finished it. At this point though, my question for you is are you still chasing things, or is it more about maintenance for the sake of longevity?
In what sense chasing?
Do you still get that urge to get out there and try to rip new tricks and do groundbreaking stuff? Okay.
Every single day.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
I haven't been able to for the last half year, so I have a very, very long list of things that I'm looking forward to just checking off one at a time.
Cool.
But,
so you're not at that point yet. There are some friends of ours that are like, oh, I'm just at the point now where I just want to maintain and make sure I don't get hurt. So they're not at that level where
For me, everything I do, as selfish as it's going to sound, is for me.
Of course.
So going to work at Cirque, it was for my own validation. Yeah. Doing any gig I do, it's for my own joy. Like, I'm doing it because I enjoy it. And what I really enjoy more than performing of any sort is training and doing new stuff. So every day I'm thinking about something new I can do. Every single time I train, no matter what, I will do something new. Even if it's not a new trick for the world, even if it's not even a new trick for me necessarily, I'll do something different.
Yeah.
So a trick to the other direction, like I normally twist left, I'm going to do something twisting right, or a new combo, or like, what if I were to do like a thread in the air while I'm doing a trick I can already do, or something like that. Just always something that keeps me moving forwards.
Totally.
Yeah. I don't see the point in being stagnant.
Yes.
Like, obviously, working for Cirque put that on a bit of a hold, but I would still train as much as I could and still do new things.
It's tough because you get into that routine mindset where you're like, oh, I'm just going to train the stuff I do every day.
Well, even beyond that, it's just the workload. Like,
totally, bro.
When you work at Cirque in Vegas, you do 10 shows a week minimum, sometimes up to 12. So you work 5 or 6 days a week.
Yeah.
You have to rehearse, depending on the week, not at all, or all of those days. So if I have a show at 7 and then another show at 9:30, I'm going to be at the theater at absolute best case scenario call time until the end of the second show. And then I'm going to either take a shower or just take off my makeup. So my day will be, it's like a 6-hour day.
Yeah.
And the shows aren't easy. It's not like you're doing crazy hard tricks necessarily. That's a big misconception. You're doing something that's controlled enough that you can do it that many times a week without dying or flying off the trampoline and hitting your castmate and injuring them. Or basically they want something that's consistent.
Yeah, replicable every time.
Exactly. Yeah. Something that's cool enough looking that the audience is going to be like, oh shit, we're at Cirque du Soleil. But not like, dude, I'm going to huck a quintuple front. It's going to be sick.
You're not going to get a round of applause for a failed triple.
Exactly.
Here, yeah.
Big tip for anyone auditioning for Cirque. Don't do that.
Don't fall.
Yeah. Don't fall is a big one. But yeah, just the workload of not being able to go to the gym and destroy myself all day. That was actually what prompted me to leave Love and go back to Chris Angel, was knowing I was going to do one show a night and I was going to do an aerial. Yeah. Like, if all I have to do is an aerial, I can go do anything I want all day, show up at call time, do my show, do my aerial, bow, and be like, I'm going to go home and train more. Bye. So that was a much more ideal lifestyle for what I like to do.
Oh, totally.
But I'm also not a terrible performer, but I have no interest in performing compared to training.
Yeah.
Like, I perform because it's a fun job and it pays the bills and I enjoy the people. But I'd never, ever have woken up and been like, oh, I can't wait to be on stage right now.
Totally.
Don't care.
Just the quest for knowledge.
Yep.
Wow.
Exactly.
And this is a random question, and I've never asked this before because it's probably not an answer that's on there for a lot of people. But how long do you plan on moving for? Like, do you plan on being able to move till the day you die? Okay, that was my question.
Yeah. I think with some disciplines, there's more potential to keep going for longer.
Agreed.
So tricking and b-boying are the hardest things ever.
Yes. Yeah.
Unless you're Shosei, apparently, and you're just
Bellagio fountains,
God moded everything.
Totally.
But tricking and b-boying take more effort than anything else I can think of doing.
Yes.
And they also have more wear and tear on my body than anything else I do.
Totally.
Hand balancing is no impact. Nunchucks is no impact. Poi is no impact. Juggling is flexibility as well.
Okay.
Some aerial stuff. I'm not an aerialist by any means, but I do occasionally do aerial stuff. Some of it is very low impact. Some of it is more impact. I tend to do the lower impact version of that. Trampoline is fairly low impact. So as far as I'm concerned, as long as I can, I want to try and segue more into dancing and things like that because I feel like that's less impact as well and still just fun and a cool skill.
Dope.
But I'm sure... And like being in this last 6 months of not being able to do anything, I've definitely had a lot of introspection when it comes to like, what am I doing with my life and how much longer can I do this? And is it worth it? And to me, it is worth it because it's just something I enjoy.
Hell yeah.
But I'm sure the day will eventually come where I just am like, maybe I'm not going to do like a double flip to my hands ever again.
Totally.
Because there will always be someone out there who is younger, stronger, crazier, more resilient. Like it, for me, it can't be a competition. It has to only be between me and me.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. But I just had to ask that because I just see you as someone that's constantly just going to be training until you basically physically can't anymore.
Yeah.
So
that's the plan.
It's like my mom, basically.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Your mom. She's doing all the hip hop dance.
Exactly. You know my mom. Yeah.
I want to be like your mom.
My mom trained 7 days a week.
Your mom's sick.
Yeah. She would train more if she didn't have church on Sunday.
There you go.
That's crazy. So, well, dude, I think that's a perfect segue into one of these last questions I want to ask you, which is I asked all of our friends and some have answers, some don't. So open-ended or closed. Where do you see yourself in 5 years from now, and where do you see yourself in 10 years from now?
Well, as it stands right now, I don't see myself performing in a 10 show a week capacity.
Of course.
Yeah, for much longer.
Okay.
Purely because it doesn't interest me that much.
Okay.
I enjoy integration to an extent, meaning like I enjoy when I get to a new show and everything's brand new and shiny and I'm like, oh, it's a cool set. It's a playground.
Yeah, of course.
But then once it becomes routine, I start to lose interest. So I can see myself being an on-call performer for CIRQUE for however long.
Filler, yeah.
And I can see myself doing seasonal shows. Like I did tramp wall at Six Flags Magic Mountain for summer and it was super
months
fun.
At a time, yeah.
Dude, it's so much fun. It lacks the prestige of being like, I'm in Cirque du Soleil, but I don't care about the prestige anymore. I've got all the notches on my CIRQUE bedpost, so to speak. I've done multiple shows for them. I don't care anymore. I just want to do things I enjoy. With this pandemic, it's kind of thrown a monkey wrench into the other things I was thinking of doing, which were to travel and teach workshops because there seem to be a lot of people out there who want to learn how to do handstands.
Yes.
Want to learn a one-arm handstand, want to get more flexible. This whole movement culture thing on the internet seems to be a great place for me to pray, for lack of a better description. But and also, I was interested. I was actually going to ask you about this, maybe not during the podcast, about going to do stunts. I might be too old for it at this point. I don't even know. But I feel like and I'm sure I'm romanticizing a lot of it because I'm looking from the outside looking in, just like a lot of people romanticize working in CIRQUE or working as a performer. They're like, oh, they just play all day. But it looks like it would keep you more engaged because it looks like you're always doing something new to an extent. I know, like I watch a lot of the Corridor Crew guys and they do the Stuntmen React with Guy and so on, and him talking about how a fight in Winter Soldier took like 3 weeks to shoot or something like that. So obviously there is an element of ongoing doing the same thing, rehearsing and
but it's fresh every day though.
But that's the impression I got. Yeah.
The only thing I would say that'd be hard for you is that, like, as you know, when I would leave on these movies, you don't get to train because you're stuck on set 12 hours a day,
but
3 to 6 months. Exactly.
You have a union. Yeah. See, for me, if my time is wasted, I don't get a cent for it. Yeah. I just sit there being bitter.
Yeah, that's the worst.
The worst for me is like if I get pulled into a rehearsal at 2 p.m. and I don't have a show until 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Because let's say it's July 4th and I'm there at 2 o'clock. What am I going to do with myself for the next 4 hours?
Totally.
Before I have to even start my makeup, before I go do a show,
yeah.
before I do another show.
Yeah.
Like I could drive home, but then I would have enough time to comfortably chill for like 45 minutes before I'm like, all right, it's busy on the strip. The parking lot's going to be ridiculous, you know?
Yeah.
I would enjoy something that was a little more fresh. And whenever I've done the handful of stunt gigs I've done in the past, it always felt that way. It felt like, you know, you show up, you do your thing, you run through whatever needs to be run through before the actual takes, you do it, and then you're on set and cool.
Yeah, if you're in the TV world, it's pretty simple like that. You could probably still bounce back and forth. It's just if you're trying to do like long-term features, you'll have to be gone or move and stuff.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, I mean, definitely hit me up. I'll send you some info.
Sweet. Thank you. Yeah. It was funny how like I was sort of entrenched in that group of people who then went on, like you, Jeremy, Mark Wagner, etc. Like everyone's just like raking it in the stunt world, and I'm over here like, well, I'm in Cirque. You want to see my weird trick? My legs go like this.
But more than anything, like you said, I think the most important thing that I've summated from this entire interview is that like you're doing things for yourself and to be happy personally. And
absolutely,
at the end of the day, when you do that, you can't live with any regrets because you're doing it for the right reason. You know,
I would always regret if I hadn't gone and worked at Cirque du Soleil.
Dude, like, you know, one of my biggest life regrets in the world is having never been on a Cirque du Soleil show.
Well,
that's why being a consultant is so cool to me.
Yeah.
But I've said that maybe 10 times on this podcast to people that my biggest regret is never being on a Cirque stage. Even though obviously I'm caking, we're doing really good in stunts, but just something about that life thing that I really always wanted to do was hit a Cirque stage.
Well, like as an acrobat, especially working as an acrobat, every single motherfucker out there is going to be like, oh my God, you're an acrobat? Oh, are you in Cirque du Soleil?
Of course.
No. Oh, wow. Oh, have you thought of auditioning?
Yeah.
Oh, you did think of auditioning. Oh, you did audition. Oh, you didn't make it in? Oh, so you're not good enough? And it's just like,
yeah, it's crazy.
It's the equivalent of being like, oh, you work with computers? Oh, are you in Google?
Exactly.
No? Yeah. Well, then you're a little bitch.
That's why now I'm like, oh, I'm a consultant actually.
Yeah, exactly.
They're like, oh, okay.
Consulting for Cirque is actually something I would be very interested in. I feel like cool, the way my brain works, I like to see what people's strengths are, what people's like sort of, if someone had their ideal version of a show, what would they do with it?
Yeah.
And then see how that could be run into something that's a little more feasible. Because like when you join a show, the show track already exists. It was made for whoever created it.
Yeah, during creation.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people get kind of trapped in someone else's shoes that don't fit them very well.
Totally.
So for me, all the tricks I'm good at are weird. Like, and being required or at least generally pushed towards doing something that is more conventional, it's neither satisfying nor safe necessarily for me feeling compared to like, if you put me on a trampoline right now and you say, hey, do a front full, I'll be like, okay, and I'll just go do it.
Yeah.
But if you put me on a floor and you're like, do a round off, back handspring, back layout, I'd be like, God damn it.
Yeah, totally.
So I would love to be able to work with new shows, whether it was with Cirque du Soleil, Dragon, any of the other companies out there, and just kind of help put things together that would be good for both the audience, the management, the artists, everyone involved.
Dope.
So that would be my 10-year answer.
Okay. Well,
the 5-year answer will be clinging my way towards that.
I will keep my ears open if anything pops up, dude. That would be cool. And more than anything, dude, I'm just stoked to see where the journey continues to progress because obviously we're in the same age group and stuff like that. We're starting to get older, and it's just cool to see certain ones of us like still moving and, like you said, pushing the boundaries, not just maintaining at this point. So
I feel like people just kind of get caught in this rut of like, this is me, this is what I do, and therefore I can never poke my head over the trench and be like, oh wait, there's like this infinite landscape in any direction of other things you could be.
Totally.
Like I always thought, and this might be a little off and philosophical, but I always thought it would be the greatest shame if you had a natural aptitude towards something and you never found that thing.
Agreed.
So
it's
like,
a waste.
Yeah. Imagine like you had this great sense of rhythm and you didn't know it and you never picked up a drumstick. Imagine you were super dexterous and you had all this music in your mind, but you never learned to play piano. I just like to try as many things as I can and see what kind of fits. So yeah.
That literally sums up you perfectly. That's like, that was such a good quote. That may be the intro to your episode. We'll see.
Let's do it.
That may be the intro, dude. Well, dude, more than anything, man, I appreciate you taking the time to drive over here and sit with us. Cause like I said, more than anything, I haven't seen you in so many years, but
it's been a while.
I'm glad that we could share your perspective with people because I feel like a lot of things that you do is super unique, including the way that you approach your body and the goals that you have, you know, like I'm really, really stoked that I've been a witness for part of your journey. And hopefully
the better part.
Hopefully I'll be. That's what I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
I was there for like a good 10 years at least, you know. So
it only got good in the last 10 years. The first decade was just sort of the shit prelude of like learning how to do anything.
The warm up.
Yeah, and then watching like kids like Corbin when he was 8 just be like, I'm better than you, and be like, okay.
And now he's a Tempest Pro.
He is
crazy, man.
He gets purple shirts.
Yeah. Well, we're not getting any younger, but at the same time, it's dope, dude. I'm really stoked. The place that the community is in right now, and
seeing like Shosei and Zen and all these kids who neither know nor care that I exist, but dude, they're doing all these things that would have been not even a joke. Like I remember when Sesh appeared on the Bylang forums and posted this long written out combo being like, can anyone give me tips for this impossible bullshit I just made up? And everyone was like, this is some impossible bullshit you just made up, whatever, guy. And then he posts a video of himself doing it on grass and we're all like,
yep. Now Shosei's doing stuff we're not even thinking of.
Exactly.
Creating moves that didn't exist before.
He did full swing quad cork today or yesterday or whenever he did it before he posted it. Like,
and then Zen the other day on his channel was trying to do cartwheel full where he kicks with the left crescent 4 times. 4 crescent kicks, Scott. 4 crescent, and he almost landed it.
That's some Tekken shit.
4 crescent kicks.
Jin Kazama
it's
wins.
It's past the shuriken, you know? That's crazy.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we're living in a cool time, man. But more than anything, dude, I think you left your mark and you have a lot to be proud of. So
thank you.
Thanks for all that you've done for the community. Well, yo, before we get out of here, can you look into the camera and just let people know how they can continue to stay up to date with your journey and all of your training till you can't train anymore?
I'm only relevant on Instagram, so you can follow me at Scott A. McDonald, or you can try and search me on YouTube, and you can be one of like the 50 people who follow my YouTube. Such carryover. Yeah. But yeah, Scott McDonald is my YouTube, and Scott A. McDonald is my Instagram.
Hell yeah. We'll put it on the screen as always.
Thank you.
Hell yeah. Well, guys, please be sure to hit that like button, comment, subscribe for brand new episodes each and every week. Join us every Monday for brand new jam breakdowns and every Friday for brand new JAMCast, interviewing influential members of the movement community like Mr. Scott McDonald himself. Yeah. So, guys, with that being said, I got to give a very special shout out to our guest this week, Mr. Scott McDonald. Thanks for coming through.
Thank you.
Hell yeah, dude. And as always, guys, coming through. I'm your host, Travis Wong. Thanks for joining us here on another JAMCast. Till next time, we'll see you all soon. Peace.